Automakers call CVTs progress. So why are so many failing before 100,000 miles? Sure, they're cheaper to make and more fuel efficient, but here's the truth. They're not built to last, and they're definitely not built for you. Today, we'll break down why car makers love CVT and what you need to know to keep your transmission and your wallet from breaking down. Why CVTs are taking over. Continuous variable transmission, or CVTs, are popping up everywhere. From budget compacts to hybrid SUVs, this one-size-fits-most solution is slowly replacing traditional gearboxes. And not because it's better for the driver. Here's the real reason. CVTs are a dream for car manufacturers. Instead of using complex gear sets that require precision machining and expensive materials, CVTs use a belt and pulley system that adjusts ratios on the fly. No shifting, no clunky gear changes, no extra parts. And most importantly, no extra cost. Compared to a traditional automatic with, say, 8 gears and a torque converter, a CVT is cheaper, lighter, and easier to assemble on a mass production line. Then you've got the fuel economy. CVTs are really good at squeezing out extra miles per gallon because they keep the engine in its most efficient power band. No hunting for gears, no wasteful revving, just smooth, quiet cruising. And that's a huge win when automakers are being squeezed by fuel economy mandates and emissions targets from governments worldwide. It's no coincidence that nearly every hybrid on the road runs a CVT or a variation of one. Why? Because it fits the mission. Smooth driving, maximum efficiency, and low maintenance on paper. And it doesn't stop there. You'll find CVTs in Subarus, Nissans, Toyotas, and even in snowmobiles and scooters. These things are everywhere. And for commuters who just want something that gets them there, the drive is actually kind of nice. No jerking, no gear slamming, just one long, uninterrupted surge of momentum. So from the factory's perspective, CVTs check all the boxes. They're cheap to make, easy to tune, help with emissions, and most drivers don't ask questions. But to the driver, that smoothness comes at a cost. Because what's easy for the factory isn't always good for the road. And that brings us to the problem, the catch. So if CVTs are so efficient, so smooth, and so perfect on paper, what's the problem? Well, here's the dirty little secret. CVTs aren't built to last. At least not in the way traditional automatics or manuals were. While car companies are happy to push them as transmission of the future, the reality on the ground tells us a very different story. One full of failures, expensive repairs, and frustrated drivers who thought they were getting something better. Let's start with durability. Traditional automatics can easily last 150,000 to 200,000 miles if properly maintained. CVTs, not so much. Many of the early models, especially from Nissan and Ford, started developing serious issues as early as 60,000 miles. We're talking slipping belts, overheating, strange whining noises, and eventually full-on transmission failure. Nissan in particular has been at the center of a storm of complaints, lawsuits, and warranty extensions tied to their CVT-equipped Altimas, Rogues, and Sentras. And while they've claimed to improve things in recent years, the trust damage is already done. But it's not just Nissan. Even other major brands like Subaru, Mitsubishi, and even Honda have seen their fair share of CVT hiccups, especially in earlier models. The problem isn't just that they fail, it's how they fail. Because unlike a regular automatic that you can sometimes repair or rebuild, most CVTs are sealed units. That means no dipstick to check fluid levels, no easy way to service the internals, and in many cases no repair options at all. When it goes bad, you're replacing the entire transmission. And that can cost $3,000 to $5,000 or more, even on a modest sedan. Now imagine that happening just outside of your powertrain warranty. Yeah, not great. But durability isn't the only issue. Even when they work as intended, CVTs can leave a lot to be desired from a driving experience standpoint. The most common complaint? That rubber band feel. Instead of shifting through gears like a conventional transmission, CVTs let the engine rev high while the car slowly catches up. It feels disconnected, unnatural, like your car is slipping even when it's not. And for towing or spirited driving, forget it. CVTs are notoriously bad at handling high torque loads. That's why you'll rarely see them in trucks or performance vehicles. Even when they're used in SUVs, their towing capacity tends to be lower than that of a comparable automatic. Some manufacturers have tried to mask this with fake shift points that simulate gear changes, but it's just software trickery. The physical limitations are still there. Then there's the maintenance trap. Manufacturers often advertise their CVTs as maintenance-free or claim the transmission fluid is good for the life of the vehicle. But ask any experienced mechanic and they'll tell you that's marketing nonsense. CVT fluid breaks down faster than regular ATF. It gets hot, it wears out, and if you don't change it, you're begging for trouble. The problem is, most drivers don't know this. They trust the manual. By the time they find out, it's too late and the whole unit needs to be replaced. To make matters worse, extended warranties don't always have your back. Some companies quietly exclude CVT failures from coverage, or they prorate the payout so much that you're still stuck with a multi-thousand-dollar bill. Others will only approve a used or remanufactured unit, leaving you with a transmission that's already had a rough life. So what's the result? Thousands of drivers every year stuck with high-mileage CVT cars that can't be driven, can't be affordably repaired, and can't be sold for anything close to book value. Cars that would have lasted another 100,000 miles with a traditional transmission are suddenly junked because the one part that should have lasted didn't. So yes, CVTs might be the future, but if you ask the average driver dealing with jerky acceleration, sluggish throttle, or a $4,000 repair estimate, it sure doesn't feel like progress. Why it's a bigger problem than it looks. The real issue with CVTs isn't just mechanical, it's systemic. Because this isn't just about a quirky driving feel or a few early failures. This is about a quiet industry-wide shift that's reshaping what kind of vehicles you can even buy. And the worst part? Most people have no idea it's happening. Let's start with the biggest red flag. You probably won't know your car even has a CVT until something goes wrong. Automakers don't exactly advertise it. The sales guy won't bring it up. The badge on the back won't say CVT edition. And most car brochures these days just call it automatic without mentioning it's a completely different type of transmission under the hood. You have to dig deep into the fine print, sometimes even the owner's manual, to find out. Why the secrecy? Simple. Because the moment you hear CVT, you might think of all the complaints, the failures, the lawsuits, and the thousands of forum posts from frustrated drivers. And that isn't good for business. So instead of transparency, buyers are getting bait and switched into a drivetrain they didn't choose, and in many cases, didn't even know existed. But here's where it gets worse. You're running out of alternatives. Traditional automatics are slowly vanishing from mainstream cars. Same with manuals. Once upon a time, if you didn't like how your car drove, you could just get a different trim with a different transmission. Not anymore. These days, CVTs are standard equipment on many base and mid-trim models across brands. In some cases, it's the only option. That means even if you want to avoid them, it's getting harder and harder to do so, unless you're willing to spend more or jump to a niche vehicle. Then there's the repair side of the equation, and this is where it gets really bleak. See, traditional transmissions can often be rebuilt by a qualified shop. You blow a gear or a clutch pack, a mechanic can crack it open, swap the bad parts, and have you back on the road for a fraction of the cost of a full replacement. But CVTs? Forget it. Most independent mechanics won't touch them. The parts aren't widely available, the tools are specialized, and even if you could open one up, there's no guarantee you'll find the parts you need, especially if it's a belt-based system with internal wear. So what does that mean for you? It means the only real solution is full transmission replacement. And depending on your make and model, that could be more than your car's worth. And here's the real kicker. CVTs don't just fail fast, they also kill resale value. Let's say your car is 5 years old and just out of warranty. A buyer looks it up and sees it has a CVT. The internet's full of horror stories. Suddenly nobody wants it. Or worse, you've already experienced the dreaded transmission failure warning light. And now you're stuck with a car that needs a $4,000 fix and isn't worth half that. This is happening to real people every day, especially with older Nissans, Fords, and some Dodges that used outsourced CVTs. And for long-term owners, it's a nightmare. You did everything right. You serviced it, you changed the fluids, but around 90,000 or 100,000 miles, the transmission starts to hesitate. You get a noise, then a warning. You go in and the tech says, "Yeah, it's the CVT, it needs a full swap." Suddenly, your carefully maintained daily driver is a paperweight. So this isn't just a new tech teething issue. This is a long-term ownership trap, a situation where drivers are being funneled into a system they didn't ask for, one that offers fewer choices, fewer solutions, and bigger consequences. We're not moving towards CVTs because they're better. We're moving towards CVTs because they're cheaper to produce. For manufacturers, they're a win. But for you, the owner, the commuter, the person footing the repair bill, they can be a time bomb. And that's the part no one talks about. So what should you do? Alright, so we've laid it all out. CVTs are cheaper to build, easier for automakers, and everywhere you turn. But they also come with serious downsides that most people don't find out about until it's too late. So if you're in the market for a new or used car, or if you already own one with a CVT, what can you actually do about it? If you're shopping for a car, the first thing you need is to know what you're buying. Don't trust vague terms like automatic or extronic or intelligent drive in the brochure. Those are often just rebranded CVTs. Look up the transmission specs. Ask the dealer directly. If they don't know, take that as a red flag and find out for yourself before you sign anything. And if you end up going with a CVT-equipped car, which, let's be real, is becoming harder to avoid, then stick with the brands that have a good track record. Toyota has some of the most bulletproof CVTs out there, especially in hybrids like the Prius or Corolla hybrid. Their e-CVT system, which uses planetary gears instead of belts, is genuinely solid and known to last. Honda has refined its CVTs over the years and generally delivers a decent experience, especially in the Civic and Accord. Subaru had some early issues, but its newer CVTs, especially in the Outback and Forester, have improved and don't get the same backlash as Nissan or Mitsubishi. If you're really worried about long-term ownership though, and your options are open, consider going for a model with a traditional torque converter automatic. They're still out there. They may cost a little more or come in higher trims, but that extra peace of mind may be worth every penny if you plan on keeping the car long-term. And yes, manuals are still an option, at least for now. They're harder to find and often limited to sportier or lower trim models, but they're simpler, more durable, and give you full control. If you enjoy driving and don't mind the clutch, it's one of the best ways to avoid the CVT trap entirely. Now, if you already own a CVT car, you're not doomed, but you do have to play it smart. Change the transmission fluid early and often. Ignore the lifetime fluid lie in the manual. Most CVT failures are caused by overheating or degraded fluid that loses its ability to protect the belt and pulleys. A good rule of thumb? Replace your transmission fluid every 30,000 to 50,000 miles and always use the manufacturer's approved CVT fluid. It's more expensive, but it's engineered specifically for the transmission you're trying to protect. If you're planning to keep the car past 100,000 miles or you live in a hot climate, do a lot of hills, or carry heavy loads, consider installing a transmission cooler. That extra cooling capacity can drastically reduce heat stress on the CVT and extend its life, especially if you do a lot of city driving. Also pay attention to warning signs. A delay in acceleration, whining noises, or jerky throttle response can all be early symptoms of CVT wear. The sooner you catch it, the better your chances of avoiding a catastrophic failure. Waiting until it completely fails often leaves you with one option: full replacement. And finally, budget for the long game. If your car is out of warranty and you're racking up the miles, start setting aside money in case the transmission goes. It's not pessimism, it's preparation. Having that cushion ready could mean the difference between fixing the car and walking away from it altogether. CVTs aren't going away. They're becoming the default, not because they're the best driving experience or the longest lasting solution, but because they're the most cost-effective option for the factory. And unless you're careful, that savings could end up costing you down the road. But if you understand the risks, maintain them properly, and choose the right models, you can still own a CVT vehicle without becoming the next horror story.